So I had this client and she was doing everything right. I mean, 5 a.m. workouts, Sunday meal prep, full calendar, zero complaints. She was a machine and she wore it like a crown, but her edges were starting to show. And so one Tuesday, her body began to send her a different message. She woke up that day, she couldn't move. She was not sick, she was not injured. She was just done. It was like her body, her muscles had had a meeting and they decided unanimously, we ain't doing this no more. And so when she called me for our session, she was in tears immediately. I didn't know what was going on. And so she began to tell me what was happening. And there was some silence. And I asked her, how long have you been ignoring this exhaustion? And she was quiet again. And she says, I thought that if I just pushed through, it would eventually make it easier. But there had been months of headaches, months at snapping at the kids. She was running on coffee, right? And her body had been signaling distress for a long time, but she saw those things and said, oh, that's just weakness. I just need to keep going, right? She's like, but I'm doing everything right. I'm doing what I should do. And I looked at her and I said, girl, by whose standard? We kept talking. Turns out she hated those 5 a.m. workouts. The meal prep, it felt like a second and a third job. She was volunteering, but she was volunteering for people and with people she didn't even like, but she couldn't say no because that would be admitting to something she wasn't ready to face yet, right? And what she wasn't ready to face was the fact that she had built an impressive life, but she couldn't even stand to be inside of that life. And the scary thing is, she really didn't know this until her body made her stop. So that's what performing looks like. That's performing capacity. You keep the schedule, you keep the standards, you keep the appearance. And for a while, your body continues to ask for relief. And you keep telling it, okay, hold on a little bit longer, hold on. But you see, your body remembers, your body keeps score every single time. And that's what we'll talk about today. C.G. Lewis, author, coach, founder of Soulscend Publishing, and this series is about power, how power is activated, how it's supported, and why so many perfectly capable people feel drained instead of powerful. Let's get into it. So in part one, last week, we talked about identity, figuring out who you are and what season you're in, understanding who you're becoming. But today we're going to talk about energy. Because it doesn't matter how clear you are about who you're becoming if your body cannot sustain the journey. Often our body's been we're in these moments, we have these moments where our body's trying to tell us something. It could be months, sometimes even years. And we talk over it with affirmation, statement of faith, drinking the coffee, just throwing caffeine and stuff, right? And we have this belief that discipline means ignoring what hurts, pushing through it. But today in this session, y'all, we're going to listen. So I have 3 prompts, just like last time, and we're not going to rush through these. As we go through these, feel free to pause and take your time. Write it down. And remember, be honest, even when it's uncomfortable. Actually, be honest, especially when it's uncomfortable. So let's get into it. Here's the first prompt. What in your life is quietly draining you that you keep giving a pass? Now, most times we already know the answer. You've been knowing what that thing is. We walk past it every morning, we step over it, we work around it. And often we get so good at ignoring it that it almost feels normal. But look, it ain't normal. You've just been patient with the wrong things. So I knew a woman, actually, this was me. I did the same thing, sat on the committee for 2 years, couldn't stand it. Every meeting felt like a slow leak. Every email from the group is different and not in a good way. But the lady I was mentioning, she stayed because she was committed. She said, I committed to this, I'm staying. People are counting on me. And she convinced herself that it was only a few hours a month. But real talk, it was never just a few hours. And it was that dread that showed up the night before and didn't leave until the next day. It was the attitude that she had on the way there and how she had to always vent on the drive home. It was walking through her own front door already on E, right? She was snapping at people she loved because of nothing, just because she was on E. And so that commitment wasn't taking a few hours a month, it was taking her peace every single week. And so that's how drain works. It's not always the big obvious problems. I know my best friend said once, a long time ago, and I've continued to say this, if something is not adding to your life, it is taking away from it. And so sometimes these things look like obligations, but they could be obligations that you may have outgrown. It could be relationships where you're the only one doing the work, or routines that you built for yourself, but you built that for a version of yourself that no longer exists. And sometimes there's things we keep showing up for out of guilt, out of history we had with that thing or person or people. And sometimes we just don't want to deal with the conversation. It's just easier to just let it be. So I'm asking you, be honest with yourself. What are you giving a pass that you need to stop giving a pass to? What's been quietly costing you that you've been too busy, too loyal, or too tired to address? That's what we're starting with prompt one. All right, so prompt two. Where are you spending energy you do not actually have? This one is for my I got you folks, right? My don't worry about me people. The ones who volunteer before anybody finishes the sentence, who say yes while still recovering from the last yes. You show up carrying a full plate and somehow you still make room for everybody else's plate, their drink, and whatever else they got going on too. Look, here's the truth. When you're giving out a habit, it's not actually generosity. It's just a program running in the background. Somebody taught you early on that your worth lived in what you could do for other people. Now, service is good. Service is a good thing, and we're all called for something. That being said, when you just define your worth based on what you can do for other people, and you continue to run on that same equation ever since, and you wonder why balance is never in your favor, that's an issue. I had to learn this myself. I was a person who'd offer to help and regretted by Wednesday. Not because anyone asked too much, but because I offered more than I had. And I kept doing it and doing it because saying I can't right now felt like something that I didn't want to say, but it was primarily because I was defining my worth and what I was doing for other people, right? My value is what I'm doing for other people. And what I now know is that I can't right now is one of the most powerful things you can say. It's not a confession. It's not a failure. It's you being honest about what you actually have to give. And when you're honest about that, what you do give actually means more. So I'll ask you again, what are you spending that you do not have? Who or what is getting the best of you while you are running on reserves? And what would it feel like to stop? Consider that for a moment. Prompt three, what does your life look like when you stop treating yourself like a resource? Now, I want you to sit with that for a second because most of us have never actually tried it. We manage our capacity, we negotiate with it, we push past it, throw caffeine at it, put a cute quote on top of it and call it motivation. But have we treated it like something that is really worth protecting? Have we looked at our own capacity and said, I hear you, I see you, and I'm going to act accordingly? You see, that's a whole different thing. And most of us have never been taught to do that. My client that I talked at the beginning of this video, she eventually got there. She quit those 5 a.m. workouts and she started moving her body in ways that did not feel like punishment. She let go of the meal prep, that meal prep marathon that feels like it's a 2-day or a second and a third job. She stepped back from the volunteering for things that she really didn't have a passion for. And she set boundaries around things and people she'd been tiptoeing around for years. And Most of all, what the best thing was, she stopped measuring herself against other people, other women with completely different lives, different money, different support systems, different everything. Because you know what? That person is not your competition, right? You are only responsible for yourself and what you've been called to do. You're responsible for managing your own energy. And you know what changed? She finally started sleeping through the night. Her morning stopped feeling like combat. She stopped snapping at her kids over nothing. Well, mostly. But she started showing up better, not because she added more to her plate, but because she finally stopped stealing from herself to fill everyone else's. That's what happens when you stop treating yourself like a resource. You become sustainable. You become present. You become someone you actually recognize again. So think about it honestly. If you fully respected your capacity, what would you let go of? And what would you start protecting? What would your mornings look like? Your weekends? How would you really show up for the people that you actually love? When you're answering this, when you're sitting with these questions, don't focus on what sounds good or what you should say. Answer with what you know to be true to you. All right, so here's what I need you to take with you today. Your energy is information, and it has been talking to you. The headaches, the irritability, the heaviness, the canceling of plans, the feeling like you're doing everything right and it still doesn't feel like enough. That's not failure. That is your body filing a report, and it's been filing it for a while. Stop ignoring it and pay attention. Understand that the life you're building cannot be sustained by a body that you're breaking. Full stop, period. So this week, I need you to pay attention. I'm not telling you just to journal. I gave you 3 prompts today, but this isn't about necessarily journal with these prompts on these days. That's good. But this week, just pay attention and listen. Listen to your body, notice what it's telling you, and get honest about what you can actually hold and commit to stop wearing exhaustion like it's evidence of how hard you're working. And that's a good thing. Exhaustion is not a badge, it is a warning. It is information. Listen to it. So if you did part 1, you're already starting to ask who you're becoming and how do I walk in my power? And the real question is whether your energy can actually support you. Because if it can't, that's not a motivation problem, that's a capacity problem. And capacity is something you can start with today. So part 3 is coming and we'll be going deeper. I'll see you next week. Oh, and hey, if these prompts are hitting close to home, the Authentic Power Society is where we do this work together in community with women who want it. So the link is in the description. Come check me out. See you next time.